The moment those black SUVs rolled up my driveway, Karen's smile froze. She had no idea the farmer, she screamed it was the man who approves every runway in Miami. What happened next turned her $50 million project into the biggest mistake of her life. I'll never forget that morning. The air smelled of pine and salt as our truck rolled down the gravel road toward our quiet Miami farmhouse by the lake. My wife, Amelia, held my hand, her eyes swollen from crying since Grandma passed 3 days earlier from breast cancer in Denver. We wanted peace, a break from grief, silence by the water, and a chance to breathe again where Grandma once loved watching the sunrise over the lake. But what we saw made our hearts freeze. A bulldozer tearing through our corn rows, concrete poured across our fields, and fences replaced with steel markings. In the middle stood HOA Karen, short blonde bob, cream blazer, clipboard in hand, screaming orders like a general on a battlefield she didn't own. She turned to us, shouting, "This land isn't yours anymore. Get out now or I'll call the cops." Her voice cracked through the roar of engines. Amelia squeezed my hand tighter. Her whisper trembled, "Honey, please don't react. Before we go on, please, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to see how many families, parents, and neighbors are feeling this story across the country tonight. Your comment helps this message reach more people who've faced unfair HOA rules too." I smiled sadly, eyes fixed on the chaos that desecrated our farm. Karen's smug grin widened when I didn't move. "You people think rules don't apply to you," she hissed, stepping closer to the hood of my truck. I rolled down the window slowly, my voice calm but heavy. "Ma'am, are you sure you know who you're talking to?" She scoffed, "I know exactly who you are. Another farmer about to lose his land." That's when I realized she'd just made her biggest mistake yet. 3 weeks earlier, I'd received Grandma's final letter, written in shaky cursive. "Protect what's ours, Nathan. Never let greed take root in our soil." Those words echoed through my mind as I watched HOA bulldozers crush her flower beds, the same ones she planted when she beat cancer the first time. Amelia stood silently beside me, her brown hair whipping in the wind, tears streaking down her cheeks as she whispered, "She deserved better than this." Karen strutted around the site, barking at workers, her diamond bracelet glinting in the sun like a warning sign. She thought she owned the world. When I asked her who approved the project, she laughed. The HOA voted unanimously. This property's been reassigned for aviation expansion. I almost laughed back. "Aviation?" I asked. "You're building a runway on private farmland?" She nodded proudly, as if revealing a masterpiece. She didn't know I'd been director of the Federal Aviation Administration in Miami for 12 years, the man who signs every runway approval in the region. Amelia whispered, "Don't tell her yet." I nodded. Patience was my strongest weapon, and ignorance was about to be hers. Karen bragged about investors, future profits, and a luxury jet hangar for the elite residents. My stomach turned at every word. I looked at the lake's reflection, my grandmother's spirit lingering in the calm water, and silently promised her I'd turn Karen's arrogance into her downfall. That night, the farmhouse creaked in silence. The moonlight glowed against the lake, revealing muddy tire tracks across Grandma's memorial bench. Amelia couldn't sleep. She sat by the fireplace clutching Grandma's old deed, edges worn, ink faded but still powerful, a symbol of our family's legacy. "This paper means everything," she said softly. "It's our proof. But how can she think she owns it?" Her eyes burned with both sorrow and rage. I took the document gently, reading the legal notations I'd memorized as a teenager. She doesn't. She just doesn't know who she's messing with. The next morning, I drove to the HOA office, a fancy glass building pretending to be legitimate, filled with smiling faces and fake courtesy. Karen sat at the head of a conference table, surrounded by men in suits. "Mr. Holt," she said smugly, "we've decided to relocate your property line." "Without FAA clearance?" I asked casually. The men exchanged puzzled glances, not realizing the weight of those 4 letters. Her laughter echoed through the hall. "Sir, this is a community decision, not a government matter." My silence was deliberate. She'd already lost, she just didn't know. I signed the visitor log, leaving a quiet note beneath my name. Director, Federal Aviation Administration, Miami Division. As I walked out, I heard gasps ripple through the room. The storm had just begun, and Karen was about to find out how federal law really works. By dawn, I'd already sent an internal FAA review notice, coded Level 4 Emergency, to Miami headquarters, triggering an investigation on unauthorized construction. Karen's project was now officially frozen, every permit under scrutiny, every contractor questioned, and every document traced back to the HOA board. Amelia watched me type the last line of the report. "They have no idea what's coming, do they?" she said, a faint smile replacing her tears. "No," I replied. "They built a runway on federal property without clearance. That's not a violation, it's a felony." At noon, black SUVs lined the gravel road. Men in suits stepped out, flashing FAA badges, cameras recording every bulldozer and boundary line. Karen ran out of her luxury tent in panic. "What is this? Who are you people?" Her voice cracked as her clipboard trembled. "Federal Aviation Administration inspection," one agent said sternly. "Ma'am, you're trespassing on restricted property. Please stand back." Her jaw dropped. "Restricted? This is HOA land," she shouted, pointing toward the farmhouse. "That man's lying." Amelia crossed her arms, calm but firm. "My husband doesn't lie. You just built a $50 million runway on federal soil, Karen." Karen's face turned pale as the agents measured coordinates. The truth hit her like lightning. She had just committed one of the costliest mistakes in HOA history. News spread like wildfire. Miami HOA faces federal aviation scandal. Reporters swarmed the gates, drones hovered above the lake, and Karen vanished from sight. I stood on the porch, watching helicopters circle. Amelia handed me coffee and whispered, "Your grandma would have been proud today." The HOA board tried to blame Karen, claiming ignorance. But every document bore her signature, her handwriting approving illegal construction on restricted airspace. The FAA issued a full shutdown order. All machinery seized, every investor frozen out. The so-called $50 million runway now sat half-built and useless. Karen finally showed up at our gate 2 days later, makeup smeared, hair messy, voice trembling. "You ruined me, Nathan," she said, eyes wild with panic. I looked at her without anger. "No, Karen. You ruined yourself. You built greed over grief, and now the law's rebuilding what's right." She begged for mercy, but federal cases don't bend for pride. Agents escorted her away while neighbors watched in stunned silence from their porches. Amelia placed her hand on my shoulder. "Do you think it's over?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "Not yet. We haven't gotten justice. Only order." When I walked back inside, the phone rang, our attorney. "Nathan, brace yourself," he said. "The federal compensation for this land, it's going to change everything." For the first time in weeks, I felt my grandmother's presence, calm, steady, proud, as the path toward justice widened before us.